When your baby screams at bedtime, arching their back, fighting you with everything they have, you feel like you're failing. You've tried everything, you're exhausted, and your baby seems more awake than ever. So you think, they're not tired enough yet. But here's what's actually happening. That wired behavior? It's not energy, it's panic. Their body is flooding with stress hormones because you already missed the window. And now their own biology is keeping them awake. And tomorrow morning, when you look at their face in natural light, you're going to see physical proof of this on their body. In the next 14 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what those signs are and the specific fixes that work in as little as 3 days, starting with the one that confuses almost every parent. Your baby seems wired instead of tired. Your baby should be falling apart right now. It's been hours since their last nap, but instead, they're bouncing off the walls, laughing hysterically, crawling at lightning speed. And you think, well, I guess they're not tired. But watch what happens when you finally get them down. They scream, they fight, and when they do fall asleep, they're up again in 30 minutes. This is cortisol. What looks like hyperactivity is actually your baby's stress response. When they've been awake too long, their body releases cortisol, the same hormone that floods your system when you're running late or stuck in traffic. For your baby, that cortisol surge gives them what looks like energy, but it's not real energy. It's their nervous system in panic mode. And the more tired they get, the more wired they become. So what do? Start watching for early sleep cues before the cortisol kicks in. Yawning, eye rubbing, that glazed, distant stare. The moment you see these, you have about 15 to 20 minutes before the stress response takes over. Put your baby down earlier than you currently do. Try moving bedtime or nap time up by 15 to 20 minutes and create a consistent pre-sleep routine. Bath, book, song, whatever works for your family. The predictability helps your baby's body recognize sleep is coming before the cortisol surge hits. Frequent night wakings, more than what's age appropriate. Now, if your baby is waking frequently at night, you might be thinking, well, babies wake up. That's just what they do. And you're right. Newborns wake frequently to eat. That's normal. 4-month-olds go through sleep regressions. That's normal. Even older babies might wake once or twice. But a 6-month-old waking every 45 minutes. A 10-month-old who's up 6 times a night. A toddler who can't string together more than 2 hours. That's not normal. That's sleep deprivation. Here's the paradox research shows. Too little daytime sleep leads to poor nighttime sleep. When babies don't sleep enough during the day, they enter the night already in sleep debt. Their cortisol levels are elevated. Their nervous system is on high alert. Here's the fix. Look at wake windows, the amount of time your baby can comfortably stay awake between sleep periods. Think of it like a gas tank. A 2-month-old's tank is tiny, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. A 6-month-old might manage 2 to 2.5 hours. A 1-year-old could do 3 to 4 hours. If you're stretching wake windows too long, you're setting up those night wakings. Make sure your baby gets enough daytime sleep, protect those naps, and address any sleep associations that require your intervention, like feeding or rocking to sleep, because these often trigger more frequent wakings. The cortisol surge doesn't just change behavior, it shows up physically in ways you'd never expect. Dark circles or red, puffy eyes. Yes, babies get dark circles too. Pull up a recent photo of your baby right now. Seriously, grab your phone. Look at their eyes in natural light. See those shadows under their eyes? That purple-gray tint? That's not normal. We think of dark under-eye circles as an adult thing, something that happens after a bad night or a stressful week. But babies show these same physical signs of sleep deprivation. If you notice persistent dark circles under your baby's eyes, or if their eyes look red and puffy on a regular basis, not just after crying, that's your baby's body showing you they're not getting restorative sleep. This is your baby's body waving a red flag, and now that you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. Try this instead. Your baby needs more total sleep time, 30 to 60 minutes more per day. The easiest way? An earlier bedtime. Moving bedtime up by even 30 minutes can make a dramatic difference. If your baby goes down at 8 p.m., try 7:30 p.m. If they're at 7:30 p.m., try 7 p.m. And here's what surprised me when I started doing this with families. A well-rested baby who gets quality sleep will actually be more present and engaged during awake time. You're not losing time with them. You're getting a happier version of them. Also, darken the sleep environment. Blackout curtains, no night lights. Light suppresses melatonin production, And melatonin is what helps your baby fall asleep and stay asleep. Constantly rubbing eyes and ears. We've all seen babies rub their eyes when they're tired. But if your baby is rubbing their eyes and ears frequently throughout the day, not just before sleep times, that signals severe fatigue. When babies are chronically sleep deprived, they never fully recover. So they're rubbing their eyes after waking up from a nap. They're rubbing them mid-morning, constantly. I'll never forget the morning I finally saw it. My daughter had just woken up from her morning nap, 7 months old, and I walked into her room expecting to see her smiling. Instead, she was rubbing her eyes. She'd been awake for maybe 30 seconds, and already her little fists were grinding into her eyes. That's when it hit me. She'd been doing this for weeks, all day long, even right after sleeping. I dropped her from 3 naps to 2 because the book said 7-month-olds take 2 naps, but her body wasn't ready. So we added back that 3rd cat nap, just 30 minutes in the late afternoon. And I'm not exaggerating, within 3 days, the eye rubbing stopped. 3 days. Your next step, reassess your baby's nap schedule. A 4-month-old typically needs 3 to 4 naps. A 9-month-old usually needs 2. A 15-month-old might be transitioning to 1. If you dropped a nap too early, your baby might need it back. Reduce stimulation before sleep times, turn off the TV, dim the lights. Keep things calm and quiet for 20 to 30 minutes before sleep. And consider this, your baby might actually need an additional nap. Sometimes adding a short cat nap, even just 30 minutes, can prevent the overtired spiral and actually improve nighttime sleep. But sleep deprivation does something even more insidious. Something that makes you think you're failing as a parent. Increased clinginess and separation anxiety. It's 10 a.m. Your baby used to play happily on their playmate, batting at toys, cooing at the ceiling fan. You could fold laundry, make coffee, breathe. Now, the moment you put them down, they scream, not fussing. Screaming like you've abandoned them in a parking lot. You pick them up, they stop immediately. You try again 5 minutes later, more screaming. You can't leave the room, you can't put them down, you can't even turn away without tears. And you're thinking, this is just separation anxiety. It's a phase. It might be. Separation anxiety is a normal developmental stage. But here's what most parents don't realize. Sleep deprivation intensifies separation, anxiety, and clinginess dramatically. The science tells us why. Sleep is when babies process emotions and regulate their nervous systems. When they're not getting enough sleep, their ability to manage emotions, including the anxiety of being away from you, falls apart. Think about yourself when you're exhausted. Everything feels harder. You're more irritable. You cry more easily. Your resilience is gone. Babies are the same, but they can't tell you they're exhausted. So instead, they cling. In my practice, I see parents who think they're dealing with separation anxiety, when really they're dealing with exhaustion. And the relief when we fix the sleep? It's incredible. Start here. Prioritize restorative sleep first. The clinginess will improve dramatically when your baby is well rested. When your baby is well rested, practice short periods of independent play. Start small, 5 minutes while you're still in the room. Then gradually work up. And if your baby's old enough, typically around 4 to 6 months, this might be the time to consider gentle sleep training methods that help them learn to fall asleep independently. And here's how you know it's exhaustion and not just developmental. Watch what happens during feeds. Difficulty feeding or falling asleep while eating. This one creates a vicious cycle. Your baby is too tired to eat properly. They latch on, suck for a minute, then fall asleep. You think, great, they're full and sleeping. But they didn't actually finish eating, so an hour later they're awake again. Hungry now, not just tired. You feed them. They fall asleep after a few minutes, and the cycle repeats. Meanwhile, your baby never gets a full feeding, and they never get deep, restorative sleep. They're stuck in this exhausting pattern of snack feeding and catnapping. If your baby is consistently falling asleep during feeds, especially if they're older than a few weeks, sleep deprivation is usually the culprit. Now, if nursing or bottle feeding to sleep works for your family and everyone is sleeping well, keep doing it. But if you're stuck in this cycle of constant wake-ups and incomplete feeds where nobody is sleeping, then separating feeding from sleep can make a massive difference. Here's what works. Make sure your baby is awake enough to take full feeds. If they're drowsy, try changing their diaper mid-feed. Strip them down to their diaper so they're a bit cooler. Gently rub their feet or back. Watch your timing. Feed your baby after they wake up from sleep, not right before they go down. This breaks the feed to sleep association and ensures they're eating when they're alert. Now, every single sign I just showed you, the wired behavior, the dark circles, the clinginess, the night wakings, they all feed into one catastrophic cycle. And this cycle shows up in the one place you spend the most time fighting: naps. Here's what's happening in your house right now. Short disaster. Naps, 30 to 45 minutes or less. Your baby goes down for a nap. You tiptoe out of the room, you sit down, you take a breath. And 30 minutes later, you hear crying. They're awake, clearly still tired, but unable to go back to sleep. You try rocking, feeding, nothing works, so you give up. And 90 minutes later, you try again. Same thing, 30 minutes, awake, crying. And after weeks of this, you accept it, you adapt, you learn to function in 30-minute intervals. But here's what breaks my heart about this. Those 30-minute naps aren't just stealing your sanity. They're literally preventing your baby's brain from processing emotions, consolidating memories, and producing growth hormone. Every single short nap is robbing them of development. Short naps, especially ones that consistently end around 30 to 45 minutes, mean your baby isn't reaching deep, restorative sleep. They're waking up at the end of their first sleep cycle, unable to transition into the next one. The solution? First, optimize the sleep environment. Dark, cool, around 68 to 72 degrees, and white noise. White noise is huge for naps. It masks sudden sounds that might wake your baby during light sleep transitions. A vacuum cleaner, a dog barking, a door closing, any of these can pull your baby out of sleep right at that 30-minute mark. Second, nail those wake windows. If your baby goes down, overtired, they won't be able to transition between sleep cycles. But if they go down at just the right level of tiredness, not too wired, not too awake, longer naps become possible. Here's my 15-minute rule. Put your baby down 15 minutes before you think they're tired. Most parents wait too long. By the time we think our babies are tired enough, the cortisol surge has already started. And if short naps are persistent, consider nap training. This might mean giving your baby a few minutes after they wake to see if they can transition back into sleep on their own, rather than rushing in immediately. Start with 5 minutes. Sometimes that's all they need. All right, you've just learned 7 signs. You're looking at your baby right now and seeing 3, maybe 4 of them. And you're thinking, where do I even start? Here's what you're going to do tonight. Not next week. Not when you get around to it. Tonight. First, track for 48 hours. Write down every sleep. When, how long, what happened. You can't fix what you can't see. Use your phone's notes app. Keep a notebook on the counter. Whatever works, but track it. Second, make one big change. Move bedtime earlier by 30 minutes. Do it tonight anyway. This is the single most powerful intervention you can make. Earlier bedtime equals less cortisol, equals better sleep, equals everything else starts to improve. I know you're worried they won't be tired. I know you're thinking, but they'll just wake up earlier in the morning. Do it anyway. Third, stack the environment and routine. Blackout curtains, white noise machine, consistent bedtime sequence. Bath, book, song, bed, same order every night. These multiply the impact of that earlier bedtime. They signal to your baby's body that sleep is coming, and they make it easier for sleep to stick. Then, you wait. You stay consistent. You give it a full week. Research shows you need to be consistent for at least 3 to 4 days. Ideally, a full week, before you'll see real improvement. After a week, reassess. Is your baby sleeping better? Are the signs improving? If not, tweak your approach. Maybe wake windows need adjusting. Maybe bedtime needs to move even earlier. A few important reminders. Every baby is different. What works for one might not work for another, and that's okay. It may get harder before it gets easier, especially if you're changing sleep associations. Your baby might protest the changes initially. That's normal. And finally, if you've tried everything and nothing is improving, or if your baby seems excessively sleepy even with adequate sleep, or if they're snoring or having breathing difficulties, talk to your pediatrician. There could be an underlying medical issue like sleep apnea or reflux. So tomorrow morning, when your baby wakes up, I want you to do something. Look at their face in natural light. Really look. Because if you make even one change tonight, moving bedtime earlier, adding that white noise, you might not see a difference tomorrow, but in 3 days, a week, those dark circles will start to fade, the eye rubbing will slow down, and that frantic wired energy before bed, it'll soften into actual tiredness. And you'll realize your baby wasn't fighting sleep. They were fighting exhaustion. Now, which sign did you suddenly recognize in your baby? Was it the wired hyperactivity? The dark circles you thought were normal? Those disaster naps? Drop a comment and tell me. because I read every single one. And your experience might help another exhausted parent realize they're not alone. And here's what I want you to remember most. Small changes can make a big difference. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Even moving bedtime up by 20 minutes or protecting one nap more carefully can start to shift the cycle. If this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. It really helps other exhausted parents find this information. I'll see you in the next video.